right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Coast to Coast. I am your host, Pags. I've got Bo next to me, and we've got somebody who I've never seen before this early in the show, a McLovin. They are making an early appearance today. Hey, listen, real quick, if you guys are trying to find us on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network on Facebook, you have to go to the YouTube or go to either one of McLovin's or Bo's page. As of right now, we got the hack. We got hacked. We're not sure how or where, but that's okay. We're solving that issue. We're getting it back all together again. So we'll be back up and running here in just a few moments. But anyways, you can find us on Roku, all that other fun stuff. But I had to let everybody know that if you're trying to find us right now, we're hacked.
I blame the Chinese.
It's always. Anyways, so look at this. We got a full crew for the full 2 hours. I'm not used to this. How you guys doing this morning?
Bo, you go first.
Excellent. It's a good day. We got everybody here. We get to see McLovin first thing. It's weird.
I gotta tell you, I almost didn't come on today. I didn't have the mic that I really wanted, and I just felt like it would be a disservice to me as a podcaster to come on with an inappropriate mic.
You didn't have the right tights today? Is that
I
what
didn't
it
have the
was?
right tights today. It just was that kind of day.
I tell you, I watched that just before you guys all got on, and wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So I got the audio if you want to play it, and then we can discuss this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for that. I didn't get a chance
Wait,
to download it. It came over too close.
All right. Give me just a sec here.
Oh, it's always just a second.
I probably shouldn't tell you this. We didn't have the tights that he wanted, so he didn't know if he wanted to play. Oh, yeah. You heard it. We didn't have the tights that he wanted, that we've never had for him, and he decided, I don't feel like I can go. That's what young people do. Oh, yeah. I don't even know. But he figured it out in the second half. He accepted the fact that we didn't have the tights that we've never had for him, and he played well.
Okay, so first off, you don't have the tights, so you can't play basketball. That seems bizarre to me to begin with.
When did this occur?
This was the Louisville game. I want to say it was a couple days ago. But I don't know the exact date of the game. But that being said,
there it is. It has to be against Virginia. And who was the player?
Johnson? His last name was Johnson.
Yeah, number 4. Didn't see the name on it, but my question was
Lori Johnson.
Would you, as a coach, still put that kid in the game? I don't know that I would. Like if you're flaky enough to be like, I don't have the tights that you've never had. I don't know if I can go. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. You can't go. Like
it almost sets a bad precedence for the rest of your team, or a bad tone for your team, or going into a different direction of your team. I mean, what's it going to be next? And I just think that's way too crazy, bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, the hard part. I mean, obviously, we're a little older. I'm a Gen X. I know you're a Gen Y, right? You're Gen Y, really?
I'm actually the 1 year that doesn't have a designation. So Gen X stops in 80, and then they categorize the millennials now all the way back to like 82, and I'm 81. I'm that 1 year where they're just like, yeah, these guys, we don't want them, but we don't want them either. So you guys can pound sand. Welcome to my 1 year.
Gotcha. So, but all right. So you're close enough to the X or the Y. I guess you're the XY chromosome. You're where all of this stuff really starts. Anyways,
or you're the fluid gender chromosome.
hey, listen. We're not going there.
You said X and Y, so I just
man.
chromosomes. I don't know.
It's going off the rails early.
Yeah, exactly. But the truth of the matter is that with the children today, you don't have the opportunity to be able to express the way you would like to. And that feelings are much more important than team, I guess, even in this case here. That if I have to assume that he's a scholarship player.
You would think so, yeah.
And ultimately, he is going to have to, the coach has got to say, okay, you know what? I got to put you in. And I'm sure he needed him. I'm sure that was the problem. He played for 14 minutes. So I got to imagine that even, you almost got to let the kid come to his own senses and be like, hey, I really want to be out there. Sometimes the drive, and maybe that's what the coach was kind of going for. I kind of feel like that, that conference, that press conference, I don't even know if I should be telling you this. I wonder if he got any backlash from that for saying that specific.
Probably, right? Because it's low key shaming the kid, which I probably would have been a little more overt about it anyway. But and also probably why I'm not a coach, because that kind of stuff I'd be like, what are you even doing here? Like, you might as well hit that transfer portal. Like it.
or if you're Jabari Johnson, why not trying to get an NIL deal with the company that made your tights or the tights that you like?
Well, especially if they've never had them before. So it's not even like it's something new. Like, oh yeah, we've always had them, but then we didn't have them. I'm just uncomfortable. It's you've never had them. So what are we even talking about?
So what, did he forget them? He's never had these tights before. So I got to imagine that there's a part of you that gets dressed yourself in the morning or even before the game.
I would hope that's still a thing, right? Like,
I mean, I would hope so.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Are people not tying their own shoes anymore? They just got Velcro and call it a day.
I don't ever tie my shoes. That's a whole different
we got to get used to it.
Yeah, well, you tie them once and then you just slide them on.
No. I actually am one of those guys that actually puts the laces under the shoe. I get some some rubber soles and I put it underneath there. I slip on and off. I'm not tying any shoes. I tie shoes. When I get dressed up in a suit, I tie shoes or I wear boots. Most of the time I wear cowboy boots. You know what I mean?
If you were playing basketball, you'd be tying your shoes.
That is correct. Correct. So, but that's obviously that's.
Wait, hold on. But Rob Gronkowski, doesn't he have this shoe now that you can? It's got the little shoehorn built into the back. You don't even need a shoehorn. It's just ready to go. You just slip it in and roll.
Well, I mean, like my tennis shoes. If I'm just wearing them walking around, like I don't tie them every time. I just slide them on and off because I don't care. But if I'm putting work boots on, stuff like that, obviously you're tying them because you have to.
Right. So, I mean, that all being said, I mean, I guess you feel for the coach a little bit because obviously he's on the older side and he's understanding that, like, listen, this was absolutely ridiculous. You're asking me why he didn't play? Here's the reason why he didn't play. It had nothing to do with me.
Yes.
So, but the kid finally turned around and said, hey, tights or not, I think I can start to go now because I'm watching my teammates look at me and saying, you're not here to help. Why are you here? Because that's where it comes down to. Your teammates are like, yeah, Mr. Uncomfortable here. You know what I mean? Is that what it is? Yeah, we're playing against Virginia here. I mean, because that's what it is. Is Virginia ranked this year? No, it doesn't look like it. But I mean, actually, they're third in the ACC. So yeah, you got a 6-14 Louisville team who's not playing very well in the first place.
Yeah. Going
up against a top team in the ACC, and here it is. You got the wrong tights on.
I don't mean to laugh, but man, that's a weird way to try and miss a game. Like it just.
Could you imagine? Let's bring this up a notch. Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
Now, going into the Super Bowl, first off, we're in the pros. If you want a certain set of tights, you're getting those tights.
That is
It's
true.
in the contracts. It's in the contracts. You know, I mean, I've heard some weirdo things that were placed in contracts that they got every game. And I tell you, these pro athletes, they get a brand new pair of socks every game.
Yep.
They're very, and those socks are like $25 a pair of socks.
Yep.
You know, it's not, these aren't like, you know, the socks that we're buying at Walmart or at any of these other places. You know what I mean? Yeah. These aren't, you know, Hanes or Fruit of the Loom socks. These are nice socks, you know, that they pay a lot of money for. You know, I know, for instance, one of the things that I always love talking about is that when the Phillies had, you know, when it was John Kruk in his contract with the Phillies was to have 2 cases of beer on ice at his locker at the end of every game.
Wow.
That was in the contract.
Damn, 2 cases?
Right?
2
He's doing
cases.
some work.
Well, yeah, whether he drink them or not, truth of the matter is he put 2 cases there. He'd share it with the rest of the team. He's not drinking them all. He'd drink a lot, but he's not drinking them all. But he was, sharing them with the team and stuff like that. And those are interesting. I mean, hey, you're from Seattle.
Yep.
What's his face used to get Skittles?
Yes.
2 big bag monster family bags of Skittles, and they'd be gone by the end of the game.
Yep.
He'd eat them all. Fat ass.
As long as you're producing, eat whatever you want.
What flavor was the beer? I remember the flavor of the beer. It was Bud. He got Bud.
He didn't even negotiate good beer. Wow. Okay.
Well, it just, hey, listen, you drink what you drink.
It's true.
I mean, could you have a really nice IPA there? I mean, that would have been great.
So yeah, it's interesting to think that, but in college you don't get that. College is not. That's not the place for that, you know. So, but I'm sure, like they get shoe deals, they get sneaker deals, right? In college,
right?
I mean, I wasn't a football player or a basketball player in college, but I think that they get sneaker deals. High schools get sneaker deals. What am I? You know, it's like what else is going? So I got to imagine that you're getting something put on your feet. You're getting the jersey and the shorts to wear specifically from them that they give to you specific, because at the end of the game they're washing them and cleaning them and putting your name on the back and all this other fun stuff. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You got to wear your own underwear.
Now, see, that's something I would want a brand new pair of every game. Give me a brand new pair of underwear and socks. I don't care what anybody says. You got a good pair of underwear.
Well, you better make it to the pros. You better make it to the pros there, McLovin.
Or get a good
and as soon as well, there you go. My pro days are pretty much behind me.
Sponsor, but you got to be, elite.
Hey, I could smack talk beast mode. Hey, listen, had he got that last handoff in that second Super Bowl, maybe you guys would have won.
Man, I'll tell you right now, I promise you, I'm over here trying to be Kobayashi. If I can beat Kobayashi or whoever the new Eaton champion is, that's my goal right there.
Oh, no. Kobayashi's been done for a couple of years now.
He's old school. I know. Now they got Kenny Chestnut or whatever, Chesney.
Yeah, Chestnut. He's a Philly guy.
Yeah, he's the eating guy, I heard. So
Yeah.
I'm coming for you. I'm drinking 2 gallons of water and 3 loaves of bread every day. I'm coming.
Go to town. Go to town. I can imagine with that. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to leave that. We're going to leave that alone.
And I get the best of Ozarka. Let me tell you something in my contract.
I got to imagine though that this is something that happens more frequently than we hear about.
Probably true. I mean, you would think so, because if it's getting out, it's happened more than once. So it's probably happened more than once with this kid. But that being said, it's just weird.
I mean, don't basketball players get like new sneakers every game? I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't play in the same sneakers.
Hey, Robert, you better go get yourselves a coach first before you start trying to talk to me. All right, there, Mr. Wardell.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You guys can't even find a coach. You guys coach. Your guys' coach didn't even want to coach with you guys anymore. He's ready to go somewhere else. He don't even want to be part of that organization anymore because you treated him so harshly. And you're talking about my team? My team? Speaking of which, we plucked another one of your coaches from your team. So I don't even want to hear it. You guys ain't got nothing right now. You're losing everything in that organization over there. So
yeah. No,
they're both over there laughing like it's all true.
That was part of that message last night, right? I was just like, man, you guys have a lot of DCs and OCs at position coaches now. So
yeah, well, you know what, and that was one of the things. And you saw what I responded.
Yeah,
I said we've been here before. I have been here like this. It was the last year Andy Reid coached here. He had a lot of head coaches or coordinators in the pot, and that's the problem with this is that, too many cooks in the pot makes for a messy kitchen. And
question though, Pags, with the number of Georgia Bulldogs that are on your team and the number of now Seahawks coaches, should we just name the Philly Sea Dogs and call it good?
First off, we have one Seattle coach.
Yeah,
it looks like you're the coordinators.
So listen. Hey, listen there. When you guys haven't even changed your coordinators, and you don't like them. So I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Come out number one in the division. Go figure that one.
Actually, and I'll be honest. I heard some more confirmation.
Yeah,
I heard some more confirmation about the rumor that I had talked about. They were talking about it on the Sports Talk Radio a day or two ago, and the timeline matches a little too well, and I think it has to do specifically with Hurts and Brown.
Okay,
these guys were the best of friends. One is the godfather to the child, and it may be irreconcilable.
Oh, wow!
All right, bring in the chaos. I like it.
So that is, it's weird. It's weird because I mean, how do boys do that to each other? Best of buds do that. And stuff like that always comes back down to the same exact reason every time boys stop being boys.
Yeah.
It's always the same thing over and over and over again. Don't matter how good of boys you are.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that could possibly be a riff. And it's possible that it's really true now. I heard more confirmation.
Well, I mean,
so do you think AJ winds up on a different team because of it?
Yeah. Well. So here's the hard part about this. Hurts isn't going to demand the trade. It's not going to be Hurts that gets the trade. My expectation is that you still, because it's got to stay under wrap. This has to stay under wrap.
Yeah.
you have to consider trading. I mean, obviously, there is rumblings, I got to imagine, going across the NFL.
Yeah,
Somebody's heard something.
sure.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to be able to keep this completely quiet.
He's still
Well,
a
nothing
top
ever
5
stays
receiver.
down.
He's still a top 5 receiver. You know, he would warrant a first-round pick.
Yeah.
You know, so ultimately, you have to, as an organization, make sure that it does not come out.
Mm.
So, and I tell you what, if Hurts demanded a trade and Seattle comes in for him, God bless. You know,
I don't see that
since
being a thing.
Robert is all on that train. He's like, yeah, we'll take him. Yeah, let's go. Woohoo! Yeah. That's what I'm saying, because his team stinks right now, Robert. Your team stinks, and you're trying to talk bad about the Eagles. Get out of here.
It sounds like Robert's not sold on Geno anymore.
Exactly.
Rob Rob just woke up and chose violence this morning.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
Has the Geno train left the Seattle building? I mean, are we off the Geno train now?
I guess so.
You're going to have to make a decision anyway. He had a 3-year contract. So this next year, you got to figure out what it is your succession plan is, right? So whether it's going to be, whether it's going to be you draft a guy and you let Geno, be that mentor for a year, and then you have an easy out on the 3rd year. If he isn't progressing, then you stick with him. If he is, then, you do whatever you do. But,
right.
I mean, it's only a 3-year deal, so you got to have a plan behind it. Or do you really think that Geno's your long-term answer? I mean, I don't, but, it's not that he's bad, but he's also not elite. So if you're going to look at, say, this draft where there's a lot of guys in it, you draft a guy, you let him learn under Geno. So, I mean, you're a year or two away from pulling the trigger on somebody else anyway, whether it's a free agent or the draft pick that you took. I mean, Geno probably isn't your long-term answer, especially age-wise. And I mean, that's
what I was saying. He's got to get to lose a little bit in age. I mean, he's been around for a minute.
Yeah. What, he's like 33, I think, something like that.
And it's not like he's the elite quarterback like a Rodgers or a Brady that can just stay around till they're damn near 40, right?
No, I mean, he plays good enough football that he's going to be around, right? But if you're changing everything about your team, you have, all new coaching and everything, you got a really young roster. Do you pair that with another, with a young quarterback so that you can pay some defensive players, kind of shore up some spots that you have weaknesses in and get back into a Super Bowl picture? Because, I mean, outside of Mahomes, as soon as you're paying top dollar for a quarterback, you're kind of on the fringe of being able to make a Super Bowl, right? It's always the rookie deals that you have your best chance to win because you can spend your money around the rest of the roster. So, I think that's really the question moving forward is what it is they're going to do at quarterback. But, I mean, to answer your question, long-term, Geno's probably not your guy.
I agree with that. And, this is one of the things this is where I wish to a small extent that we still had some of Andy Reid's handbook with the Eagles, and probably a lot of different franchises feel the same way. Andy Reid would love to take a quarterback in the 4th round.
Sure.
And ultimately, he would parlay that to trading him for a 2nd-round pick 2 years down the road.
Sure.
Because you take one in the 4th, you get him a little bit prepared, and then you trade him off later for a 2nd-round pick in a couple years. We were the quarterback factory.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't do that in Kansas City because Mahomes is that good.
Yep.
Right.
So there's no need to try to do that right now when you have a quarterback that's going to championship game after championship game and, more often than not taking you to a Super Bowl. So you don't need to be a quarterback factory, so to speak.
Yeah.
Other teams should do something like that. Try to parlay 5th-round picks into 3rd-round picks later on. give somebody some experience and grab these quarterbacks, later round quarterbacks of good pro offenses. Not great. They can be lower 25 in the honorable mentions, with pro style offenses, and get them some experience levels so that later on, if they come into play one game and they look great and people start clamoring for them, all the clamor does is get their draft pick when you trade them up higher.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about coaches, what do you think of Arthur Smith being hired as the OC for the Steelers? I don't think it helps move them forward.
I think it's probably a lateral in terms of like you're not upgrading, but you're not degraded. I think you're just, it's just a lateral in terms of quality.
So the other part of that, the harder part of that, is that they still have the same problem. Doesn't matter who's calling the plays.
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody who can actually do the play, if you have a quarterback that can't make it all happen, because I'm looking at a story right here. Steelers owner, we've had enough of playoff win drought. Art Rooney says,
guy?
well, you know what? I don't necessarily know that he's the guy, because, again, if your offense isn't got the pieces in place to do it, then it's not going to matter who you got. You could have the best offensive coordinator. You could have Bill Walsh be your offensive coordinator, and you guys are still only going to go 9-8 when you don't have the right pieces in place. So ultimately, that's part of the issue that the Steelers have. The Steelers, as an organization, do a couple of things right. They hire great coaches.
Yep.
They have really good drafts.
Yes.
They do not do free agency well. They have a very big problem with free agency. And ultimately, when everything is together, they do wonderful. But they only do in-house stuff. They don't. You never hear of this major free agent signing from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So that's part of the issue. They don't know how to go incorporate that. Most of the time, if you're talking about a free agent signing in Pittsburgh, it's somebody on the defensive line. The defense is always the one that will get a free agent guy. You never hear about an offensive guy.
Right.
Most of the time, they take offensive linemen from other people's practice squad. That's how they get most of their offensive linemen.
Yeah.
The thing about it is too, I like Pickens and I like Johnson as their wide receivers. I just felt like Pickett never really did enough with them. And I think Mason Rudolph showed what Pickens can be, right? I think if you had a really good field general, a really good quarterback in there, Pickens could be really, really good. So I think they do have some pieces, but maybe the pieces haven't been fully exposed because of the lack of true quarterback play.
They got to figure out how to get their receivers to actually block on running plays.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. But again, I think it goes to your point, right, where maybe they just don't have the right coordinators in there to develop these guys to do that, right? So is Arthur Blank the guy that comes in that teaches those guys to do that? I don't think he is.
And not for nothing. This is the reason why I'm not getting paid a tremendous amount of money to be an offensive coordinator. But I want you to hear me out there here a little bit. Is there a thought process at all in the NFL, instead of going after receivers, maybe going after one speed receiver, but going after all these new tight ends, like these dual threat tight ends, big guys, big receivers, and having 3 tight ends or 4 tight ends out there and one receiver, so that you could do those. Like I said, it makes more sense to me that instead of having, if you're the Eagles, instead of having Smith do any blocking at 150 pounds, that it would be much better if it was Dallas Goedert and somebody who was just as big as Dallas Goedert, and maybe another guy who was on the inside who then gone out there as big as Dallas Goedert to block, rather than having somebody who I can blow over with just a really hard.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, you definitely need your tight ends to be big, right? The 180-pound tight end doesn't make sense to me. That's a receiver.
Well, no. But that's what I'm talking about. Instead of having receivers, now having these bigger tight ends as receivers, like that be your offense. Like if I was Pittsburgh, who relies more on the running game and on the short passing game because they don't have this deep threat. Go with like 4 tight ends as your receivers.
If you don't have a true number one that can rip the top off, then sure. I mean, I can see what you're saying because they don't have to respect the long ball anyway. So then, I mean,
just like Detroit. I mean, Detroit picked up Ertz. Now they got Ertz, Laporta, 2 pretty good sized tight ends. You know, good.
But Ertz doesn't a blocker. Ertz is not a blocker.
He can't block. That's the Jimmy Graham era of tight end. Like great receiver, horrible blocker.
And that's okay. I see your point.
And the tight end right now is becoming much larger facet of the game.
Sure.
Right.
So why not go to the nth degree? If I was Pittsburgh, I'd consider it. Be like, okay, we're going to start collecting tight ends. And instead of wide receivers, we're going to put tight ends in those spots. They're going to have the same receiver routes. They're just going to be shorter routes.
Yeah,
they're going to be big guys.
And they're cheaper than receivers, typically.
Exactly.
What they would do, they would just get you the yards after the catch, right? Or be the security blanket as a check down in case, the deep routes or mid routes aren't there, right? Then you got a nice big tight end that can get you, the catch plus an additional 4 or 5 extra yards, which could be the difference between the first down that you need, that third possession down, right?
I mean, so yards after catch becomes a little bit harder when you're running that kind of offense, though, because your safeties don't have to be as far back because you don't have a number one that can rip the top off. So they're not going to be, floating at 20 yards back. You're definitely going to need
a wide receiver. But then you also have cornerbacks who are now covering tight ends
for sure.
Who they have the speed. They have the speed, but they don't have the strength.
Right.
To be able to go up for that. So if you're going you're going to be doing a lot more of, these tight ends are going to run over those cornerbacks. At least that's what I would think. Again, I may be off. Like I said, that's why they don't pay me a lot of money to be an offensive coordinator, because I can't even call an offense on Madden. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not that guy. But it seems to me, and it's always been as part of my philosophy, if I was running an organization, if I was the owner of an organization, my philosophy is big men in the trenches and get as many big men as possible, because you are trying to move the ball forward. Big men move forward faster than small men.
But you also want to be athletic, big athletic men.
Of course, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So and that's why I'm thinking now, where if I'm the Steelers, and now I know what my limitations are, why wouldn't I go for monster receivers, which I call now tight ends? That's what they are. They're tight ends. Monster receivers are tight ends. Yeah. So, but get big guys that are going after and after and after it.
Well, it seemed like the Chad Johnsons and the Terrell Owens, those were big and fast wide receivers, right? I mean, those dudes had muscle. They had speed,
Yeah.
So, I wish, I think that Pittsburgh is where Pittsburgh's at right now because the scheme is not changed. The scheme works. It's always a little better than average.
Yep.
Sometimes it's much better than average when you have certain pieces in place. Ben Roethlisberger, as much of a smacked ass as you could say he was a good quarterback and
could, huge human.
Yeah, and can fend off. Like I said, it's some people you had to run away from the pressure. He would just push them away. He'd knock them down, or they'd hit him and bounce off. So, I mean, you had those types of things, but then he also had the running backs to go with that, who were the bruiser type of running backs. You bruised the other team. You wore them down, wore them down, wore them down. I feel like you would be doing the same exact thing with what I'm talking about with the wide receivers. You get tight ends in the places of wide receivers. You're wearing down a defense. The defense who's got normal cornerbacks. I mean, you could try to go ahead and put in linebackers against them, but typically tight ends are going to have more athleticism than the linebackers.
For sure.
More often than not. So you're going to have them open all the time.
But I think if that position was to morph up like that, though, don't you think eventually, that the quarterbacks are going to catch up to that and morph up as well, and then it's just two big guys going at it? I mean, I can't imagine the quarterbacks are just going to stay at a certain level.
I think that's actually where you're going to see big running backs come back is, as
like the Jerome Bettis. Yeah.
Well, as these tight ends become a bigger piece of your offense, right, and it has across the league, your outside linebackers have to become more athletic, right? Because they got to be able to trail these guys in coverage, which means a lot of times it's a different body type, right? They're starting to get a little bit thinner and faster. So then all of a sudden, if you can bring in the Derrick Henrys, they're going to have a lot harder time as a linebacker tackling a big man like that. I mean, they already did when they were big, right? But you're seeing linebackers, especially outside linebackers, becoming smaller to be able to do some of these coverage routes. So you might see a rebirth of the running back here in the next 5 years or so.
Well, and I look at it the opposite way. You're going to see the rebirth,
the fullback
of the fullback position, through tight end.
Maybe back with Mike
tight ends. Like, like you think about the 49ers. The 49ers are the only team I know of that still use a fullback as part of their offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to imagine there's some other team out there that does, but not as effectively as the 49ers do. And ultimately, a tight end, that third tight end is your fullback. Is really that's who that should be. It should be your fullback. Absolutely. The Detroit Lions had they had that one guy who kept calling himself eligible or ineligible or whatever. They were putting the one guy in. He was going in motion. And that's what made me think of the fullback position. That's saying, okay, now if we got a big tight end who can not only catch the ball but can also throw a block or two, and he's going to be a bigger body than most of the people that are on the opposite side on the defense in terms of the outside or inside linebackers. You want to have that body on him, and he's going to be able to set the path for a running back. Then I'm going to use it because that's what they use. That's what they use now for tight ends, anyways. They put him in motion so that they could get into the hole faster.
Yeah,
right. That's what's going on, right? I mean, I'm assuming that's how that happens.
Well, and it also can help mask bad offensive line play because Seattle is a prime example of this. Our offensive line was hurt all year, and they used a lot of 3 tight end sets because of bad offensive line play. So they were using them as, fill-in blockers, and then, you had little leak out routes from it. So, I mean, it can be a good addition to your team. Obviously, they have to be able to block. But, I mean, having the extra tight ends can definitely mask some things, if you have holes in the trenches.
Well, and that's kind of what I look at in terms of when you have to get to the outside. That's where when you're throwing these bubble screens and these wide receiver screens and such like that, all that is we're trying to set up the line. We're extending the line to the outside so that we can go run through the middle of the extended line. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like the idea of that whole process, but it's got to be a whole offensive philosophy. This isn't something that you could change. You have to now, that's your offense.
Sure.
I'm bullying and bruising you the entire way. Now, Now, as a defense, I got to imagine that there's defenses that could probably stop that too, because, like I said, there's reasons why they're not doing what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, because it makes it so that they don't have to cover deep. I mean, you can basically have one corner shading the one guy that can make a play deep, and you probably have a free safety that's bracketing him, so he's never going to get the ball, and then everybody else gets to come forward because nobody else is a deep threat. So I mean, you can isolate the one guy that has a chance with a deep ball, and then you're playing down to that offense. So I mean, unless you have tight ends that love contact, that'll be tough to do all day.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the hard part about this. I mean, like I said, again, there's reasons why I am not a coach. So beyond the fact that, I have ideas, but it doesn't mean that they're going to work. But I'd be interested to see if you had the right personnel, if it would work. Because ultimately somebody is going to start to do this. I mean, I'm not far-fetched here. The bigger guys are going to win most of the time.
I could see them running some of those sets for sure. I mean, because you already see teams use the 3 tight end set anyway. So I mean, I could see them running that certainly in like short yardage situations. I definitely could see them running stuff like that.
So I don't know. Next time I'm hanging out with Hollis Thomas, I'm going to have to ask him that, because the one thing I will say, when I traveling with Hollis, and when you travel with somebody who's played in the league for as long as he did, for a number of teams, you get to see different things and hear different things that I would never think about. So I've learned a lot just from listening to what he has to say in general. So I'm going to have to ask him about that and just see, because there are definitely ways that he would be automatic and be like, no, this is the reason why you can't do this, and this. Or he'd say, yeah, it would work for a little while, but then you would have to scheme around it. And how do you scheme around that as a defensive coordinator, that it may be simple, or depending, if you have a fast defense, like if you're a small, fast defense, which a lot of these, that's what Detroit was. Detroit was small and fast except for their front 4. Mm-hmm. Everybody was small in that defense, which is why they bounced off of people. Most of the time when you're hitting somebody, if you're hitting somebody the same size as you, they're going down when you hit them with force.
Right.
If they're a little bit bigger than you, you're bouncing off and they keep going, which is kind of what happens.
Well, I just wonder, I always felt like history repeats itself. And it seems like, we started out big and strong, and then we kind of went down to fast and small. And now I'm wondering if they go on the second go around of big and strong, if now because of the supplements, nutrition, development, train, and all this stuff now, if that second version of the fast and strong is just going to be off the charts, like the fullback, things of that nature, You got to imagine it will be. And I got to imagine it, like Pag said, it is going to come back around.
Yeah, of course.
Well, and everything. So it's a copycat league. And the one thing that I will say about the 49ers is that in most spots, their guys are bigger than your guys. That's a real statement. Their offensive line is typically bigger than your defensive line. Their tight end is bigger than your linebacker. Their linebackers are just the same size or bigger than your tight end. Yeah. Their defensive line is just as big, if not bigger, than anything else. You know what I mean? So all across the board, that's why they are winning games. They are bullying teams. And you have to take that bully mentality if you're going to continue to win. Sure. When the Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year, that's what we had. Our linebackers were good linebackers, but they were big. They weren't the best linebackers, but they were big. And when they hit you, you went down.
Sure.
Right.
But the problem with that is that works great against the run or a crossing pattern, something like that. But if they have to drop out and actually cover a tight end, most of the time those big guys aren't fast enough to do anything.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is
I
what
look at
was
it now at the
part of our problem
the high
last year.
school level. I take North Shore High School, for example, out here in Houston, which, by the way, is just right down the road from Channelview, where Jalen Hurts came out of. But these guys are big. No, seriously, it's where he played. But the guys are big now. You know, the offensive linemen, they look like college athletes. They don't even look like high school athletes. They look like grown-ass college athletes. I mean, I went. My cousin went to the gym the other day. Saw this kid. He's in his junior year of high school at North Shore, and he's bench pressing 318 like it's bubble gum. No big deal. I mean, these kids are getting big. Like I told my wife, I was looking at the guys out there in Wisconsin and their high schools. I told my wife, I said, if they ever went against North Shore or pretty much any one of the Texas teams, they would get destroyed because they're small. They're, for whatever reason, a little bit up north, they get smaller for some reason, but. These kids, I mean, you saw that one offensive guy for, I want to say it was DeSoto, that offensive lineman for DeSoto. I mean, you see how big that dude's big enough to play in the NFL. If he really wanted to, he can handle it. But it just amazes me how big.
I did see one kid. What was he, a sophomore?
Yeah.
He's not even a senior yet. He's a sophomore.
No, he's
like 6'3", 6'4", 375 pounds, and can run a 4.6 40 already at 10th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
muscle at 340. Ain't no fat on that kid.
Yeah. No, that's a tank.
Right.
But that's that's the way these high schools are going. And of course, and then they're going into the college levels. So to Pag's point and things like that, these guys are. I do see the NFL getting bigger again.
Yeah.
So. I find it just interesting to see how this would all play out in the grand scheme of things. Is it really one of those spots where, if this offense was to occur, and I got to imagine there are people that are thinking about this already. You know, I'm surprised that it hasn't taken hold in the high schools. I guess you can't do it in the high schools unless you're a part of a very specific school who can recruit from all across, an area, but the colleges could possibly do it,
Yeah. Well, that's what a lot of these high schools, though, are doing. Like I use North Shore as an example. It's a max prep type of school. When I went there, it wasn't like that. We just had, the kids that were in the local area. That's what we ran with. But now they are bringing kids from all over Texas. They play for this one guy, and and there's other schools throughout Texas where they do the same thing. I'm just using North Shore as an example, but yeah, you're right. It's almost like they're recruiting like college. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as Paul's stating right here that you're getting some of these rugby players that are coming over, so they are a little on the different side there. So obviously having Mailata as a rugby player who was a beast, an absolute beast. They never even considered him to be a running back or somebody who was ever going to touch the ball. He was always going to be an offensive lineman. Now, I saw that somebody entered the international portal, and somebody wrote, hey, this guy could be the first person to ever make it in the NFL with no college experience. And I'm like, and actually they showed a picture of Mailata and said, no. So that was kind of the statement there. But you are starting to get some of these rugby guys that are coming in and, have a little bit of experience with holding a football and running and being bigger and shedding off some of these tackles and such like that. It's going to be interesting to see how far that train goes. Because not having the football experience, I don't care if you play rugby or not. Australian rules football, rugby, English rules football, it doesn't matter. It's a whole different game than playing American football.
Well, and it's not like it's new, right? I mean, you started seeing some rugby players, back in right around 2010, stuff like that. Because Carlos Hyde came in. He was a rugby player. Went to the Niners first, I think. Played for 4 or 5 different teams. So, I mean, it's not like this is a new development. Rugby players have been filtering in for a long time. It's funny. They seem to have success right away, and then it kind of falls off. So I don't know what it is training wise that's different, but when they first come in, they tend to have a lot of speed. But then as they kind of get into the NFL shape, they sort of just kind of fall into the mix.
I can see that too, because the way those rugby guys do in the scrums and the swim techniques and all that stuff that they develop in those things, I can see why they would make good offensive or defensive linemen, right? If they put a little bit of weight to compete at that level. But I like rugby. It's a hard-nosed sport, and when they're in those scrums, it's really interesting to see how that dynamic, which is just it's just like offensive defensive lines.
Well, I mean, like in Carlos Hyde's scenario, he was a running back, which again that makes sense, right? Because if you're playing something like rugby. Like that's a position that you can pretty easily make that transition to, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot harder to get into some of the skill positions because you're just not training for that type of play. But as a running back, I mean, you're essentially doing exactly that in rugby. So, I mean, you see why there's some success, but it's not overwhelming success. It's not like you're going to start poaching guys from rugby teams around the nation or around the world. I mean, you're still looking for top level athletes, but it's not like they're just going to easily make that transition.
Yeah, but when you think about it, like I think of Jordan Mailata, and for the first 3 years once he got drafted, the first 3 years he didn't play it down. He ate, drank, and crapped offensive tackle. That's he learned, and the biggest thing he learned. From Stoutland University. I mean, because I'd say that we probably have the best offensive line coach in the world. You know what I mean? So I feel like the Eagles have always had a really good offensive line, always dealt with big guys. We've had perennial Pro Bowlers, and ultimately that comes from the coach. So Stoutland is that man. So, and he taught him everything. And the first thing he taught him, and that's what he learned for the first 3 years, is the first step. That's all he learned. Because once you got that first step down, everything else is easier. So,
I'm surprised that some of these football programs, and I'm talking specifically on the offensive, defensive line side of it, and maybe they do. I just don't know about it. But if they incorporate jujitsu and wrestling in their techniques or teaching them those, because I mean, it seems like that would be a huge thing to get around your opponent if you knew how to do those hand techniques.
Yeah,
I could probably do it at some level.
I could definitely see that for defensive line as far as trying to shed hand blocks. I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. That was the big joke in the 70s and 80s that the players were using ballet to be able to
flexibility is key.
To be able to get off of these blocks. That's defensive linemen. It was the big joke with the Steelers. The Steelers' defensive line were all going to ballet classes to be able to learn, like just it's some of the movements of ballet. You were able to kind of shed some of those blocks and stuff like that. So I mean, there's lots of different ways to be able to get to the point that you're talking about. So I understand 100%, like where jiu-jitsu, yes, the spin moves that people use. I'm surprised that a spin move even works anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it still does. It still does. And as a defensive lineman, it's like taboo to use that spin move. The one thing you are not supposed to do ever is turn your back to the quarterback, ever.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing when you're spinning? You're turning your back to the quarterback.
Yep.
So, so you have to be really good at it, because if you ain't good at it, then you're going to wind up getting, pancaked face first a lot of times.
Yeah. You're not lying, though.
So, I mean, I got to imagine that as football evolves further and further, it's going to become much more interesting on what other mastering some other sports or some other function of life will come into helping with being better at your craft in football.
I mean, random fact about me is I actually used to teach ballroom. And so like salsa and bachata and stuff like that were all footwork. Help keep your feet fast.
I could see that.
See, I wasn't a salsa guy, but I did swing dancing.
Okay.
I took swing dancing classes.
I did swing one time.
I'm not spinning a guy around. I'm not spinning an offensive lineman around and throwing him through my legs, though.
If it creates the block, you would.
Hey, if I was able to do that, I guess that would make sense, But yeah, I find that kind of fun, though. Like I said, it was obviously we veered off into this part of our conversation here to talk about how these things are evolving and such. Ultimately, teams are going to do what other teams are doing already.
Sure.
That's what's going to continue to happen. Because if it's working for one team, why can't you work it for your team? That's how the West Coast offense became. I mean, if you go back down to the root of things, that's the Kansas City offense.
Yeah.
It's still the West Coast offense, because if you go all the way up to Andy Reid tree, you got Bill Walsh at the trunk.
Yep. That is absolutely correct.
Yep.
So, and it's interesting because Shanahan is whole different tree.
Yeah.
He's more of the run and shoot offense. Definitely changed. Ops. Yeah, it's a complete hybrid of that old run and shoot offense, because the run and shoot offense didn't really utilize a running back very much, where they mostly use a running back. So
I remember Jack Pardee back in the day with the Oilers and with U of H had the run and shoot offense. Matter of fact, Warren Moon was king of the run and shoot there for a while with Houston. That's what they ran.
Yeah,
I think that even kind of goes even more to the Houston Gamblers when Jim Kelly was with them and Pardee was with them.
Yeah, it's a little different with CMC, though, because he's not your average running back. I mean,
You're right. He's not.
They use him in the passing game a lot.
Right. No, but that's what I'm talking about. So it changes because he is, CMC touched the ball close to 400 times this year.
Yeah.
I think he had 263 rushing attempts, and I think he was targeted 120 sometimes, and he got the ball like 63 reception, or maybe not 120 times, maybe like 80 times or 90 times. So it was like 350 times he touched the ball this year. It's a lot of times for somebody to touch the ball that's not a quarterback.
And I'm wondering, based on that, since you're talking about how heavily his usage is, my friend Joe Stevens, he played for the Rockets and a few other NBA teams. We talked to him one time, and he said, Jay, the human body only has so many repetitions in it before it's just done.
It definitely has so many hits.
Yeah, and that's right. So with football, that's exactly how I look at it, right? Especially with the way they pivot and cut and do the things, on those ligaments like they do. My question is this, off of that, how long do you think CMC has left in his body with the current usage rate if they continue this with him?
Well, I mean, I think he has a little bit of an advantage where he was hurt so often before. He has a couple more years on the back end here because he didn't play a lot of the earlier ones.
I mean, you're right. But I mean, like, how many more years do you think he has left? And not so much even in the league, right? But how much more years do you think he has left at the level for which he's at? Right?
So here's the one thing that I will say about CMC that you can't say about a lot of other players. And the only other player I could really even say this about is Eli Manning, as funny as this sounds. He knows how to fall.
He does.
He actually, he doesn't go, he's always lower. He's always lower in the hit. Yes. So if you're hitting him on his back, you're glancing off. So he's always going down at the right time. That's why Eli Manning was able to play for so long. Because he knew when it was his time to go down, and he would just go down, take the sack.
He was really good. He was really good at making a business decision. He didn't try and overextend a play. He was just like, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, because I look at a guy, way back in the day, Earl Campbell. I use him for example. That guy was 70% of Bum Phillips' Houston-based offense, right? And then, of course, he went and had a little bit of time with the Saints with him and Bum. But 70% of the offense went through Earl Campbell. I mean, even to the point where he was a kick returner for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, he only had 11 years in the league. That's it, sure. 11. And this is the kind of guy that's got tree trunks for thighs and would run you over to the point where he would embarrass you as his cleat comes off your helmet going into the end zone. I mean, but 11 years, that's it. That's all his body would give him. And of course, now you look at the guy's in a wheelchair and his body is just to shreds. And I wonder how that's going to turn out for some of the other guys, like a CMC, who, like you said, I understand he knows how to take these certain falls and things, but still the body is still the body. You still got to make cuts and things of that nature, right?
To be fair, the hits are a lot different today as well. Because, I mean, you used to be able to square the front of your helmet up on people and, really go blast somebody. True. And you're not allowed to do any of that. I mean, you have to get your head out of the way. You have to basically be doing a crossbody wrap. And most of the time, you don't see anybody wrap up anymore anyway. So the hits are so much different. I don't think they're going to quite get to the spot where, like, Campbell did. But, I mean, not to say that these guys aren't going to get hurt. Obviously, they are. But some of the viciousness of the hits that those guys used to take have been eliminated from the league. The hits that they used to take every game, you see like 2 or 3 of those a career now.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, that Detroit game, I did see at least 2 hits on McCaffrey where he got hit by 2 different people and he did a flip. Like his whole body went upside down before he even hit the ground. And one of them went upside and then sideways and then down. So I know, I mean, he probably does get, like you said, low to the ground most of the time. But there are some of those where he's not able to get there, and he does take some hard hits.
I mean, if you're getting hit from 2 sides like that, you're almost better to be high because the last thing you want to do is get that cleat caught.
I mean, you're right.
I mean, I'd rather do the flip in the air than have him break my leg.
Exactly.
Like a Chubb, for example. Mm-hmm. Like Chubb, yeah.
So that being said, listen, we're at the top of the hour. Let's take our station identification break right now. So thank you for hanging with us, and we will be back in just a few moments with the second hour of Coast to Coast.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any...
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me something.
I finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And we are back for the second hour of Coast to Coast. And, I go and I check the news after every day when we go to our station break. And the top story just came out 7 minutes ago. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson has informed the Commanders and Seahawks that he will be returning to Detroit instead of pursuing a head coaching position. While Johnson, who opted to return to the Lions last year as well, after interest was widely viewed as a favorite to earn one of those spots, his asking price spooked some of the teams.
He wanted
so Seattle. Where's my man here? Still without a coach. You're still without a coach there, Rob. No coach for you.
Actually, that's not true. We are currently in talks with sending Dan Quinn to you for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no, I know that they are talking to Mike McDonald today. Is supposed to be the deal. John Schneider's supposed to be flying out that direction. So not even going to bring him in. They're flying to him.
There you go, Mike McDonald. He keeps forgetting he's not in love anymore.
That's right.
So
not as not in love as Ben Johnson, though. He's like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to stick here in Detroit.
I find that interesting. I find that really interesting, actually. So
I'm curious what his asking price was, because I mean, it had to have been pretty amazing. If the teams are like,
yeah, I'm not really interested in giving you $12 million a year. All right, well then I guess what? I'm going to stay right where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know? No, and I can appreciate that. Listen, the one thing that you've learned, I learned now, that first off, coaches come and go. So you might as well make your money, you're not going to pay. You're going to pay all these guys, all these athletes, ridiculous amounts of money. And then the guy who's going to be in charge of them is going to get paid pittance. No. I want to be able to be on that same level. So if you're going to hire me, I want a 7-year, $100 million deal. Yeah. It's not ridiculous to think of. If I was to win you a Super Bowl, is that $100 million worth it?
Pretty damn much.
I mean, the thing is he hasn't been at HC before. So there's some unknowns, right? So do you want to give up $100 million on a guy that you're not totally sure can do the job? He's a good OC, but you haven't seen him in that role. And that role, at the end of the day, is very different. So, I mean, it's true with any other, profession, right? Like you may be really good at your trade. It doesn't mean you can own a business, right?
Well, and I think he has a good roster to work with. He has a good team situation that he likes. And so why leave? And he has an opportunity to run it back and possibly get to the next level. I mean, why give it up if you're not 100% satisfied with what the team is offering you if you were to be a head coach, right? So he can afford to be a little picky if he wants to be.
Well, and that's, I mean, ultimately, like I said, with as quickly as some of the challenges have been with some of the coaches, especially now that you look at Carolina, where they've gone through 4 coaches in 2 years. You look at the Raiders, who have been a mess for however long they've been. You have, a team as Seattle, who had the same coach for a long time. I don't even remember who. I guess it was Holmgren. Was Holmgren the coach before him?
Yeah, there was 1 year with Jim Mora in between.
Right. So, but they've always chosen. I mean, they've always chosen names.
Yeah.
It's like that's the first time I heard Jim Mora's name in a while, other than in the commercial. Playoffs.
Oh, sorry. John Mora, his kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
To say Jim Mora.
No, John Mora. So yeah, he came in. He was there for 1 year, had a 4-win season, then went on to UCLA, I think, and also flamed out there. So I mean, it wasn't. It's not like he did good things. But no, I mean, the Seahawks have actually had pretty good coaching generally. They had Chuck Knox for a long time, Mike Holmgren, obviously Pete Carroll. You would have thought Tom Flores would have been good, but it was actually some of the worst years in Seahawk history. But I mean, but they've had some big name coaches come through. So what do you think of the potential of the Raiders going after Chip Kelly?
So I have a theory on Chip Kelly.
Okay.
Chip Kelly talked about wanting to be an offensive coordinator.
Yep.
As the thought process with Bill Belichick was to get a coaching job. Those guys are chummy.
Yeah.
You know, they're really close friends. So I thought that was going to be, if you saw Bill get a job, Chip Kelly would go under Bill.
Sure.
That's what I expected. I don't suspect that Chip Kelly is going to go to the Raiders. Now, I don't know his relationship with the coach over there, with Pierce. So I have no idea. I don't know that I would want to be with that tool bag.
No,
now, I'm not a Chip Kelly fan.
Yeah. No, I agree. But he has
So
historically
that's
pretty good
the biggest thing for me. It's like, I don't know about that. But let's see. Whoa, hold on. This was a little bit ago. As we're switching very quickly, the Seattle Mariners acquired Jorge Polanco for right fielders Anthony Cifalini and Justin Topa, as well as prospects Gabriel Gonzalez and Darren Bowen. The Mariners also sent cash to the Twins.
Okay.
And they also just brought in Turner on a 1-year contract.
No, that doesn't move your needle.
Oh no, Turner doesn't move your needle.
I don't think either one of them quite does.
I think that's why they only gave him a 1-year deal, because Turner, honestly, is almost out the league at his age.
Yeah. I mean, that's I don't think it replaces what they've gotten rid of. So it doesn't make me feel better about where this season's going to hit.
Honestly, I still think it's the Orioles division to take over there. I really do.
Well, the Orioles are not in.
Yeah, they're not.
West.
They're not in.
Wait, hold on. I thought they were. Wait, well, no, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Well, no, wait, Toronto Blue Jays and the Orioles are in the same division.
They're not. They're not in the West, man. You should know. Your team is
Baltimore. This is the problem when you're a bandwagon Cowboys fan.
No.
Forget about the teams that are local to you.
You're talking football or baseball? We're talking baseball, right?
We're talking baseball.
And you don't think Toronto and Baltimore?
Toronto and Baltimore, yes. But we're talking about Seattle.
We're talking about the Mariners.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Okay, I was thinking Toronto. My mind was in Toronto. I thought we were. My bad. I apologize.
I was like, what are you even talking about?
I'll throw it away. I don't want to be quiet.
There we go. Anyways, I thought I should mention this. I was just looking at some of the news. I'm like, oh, look at that. There's a Seattle thing right there. Since they're not talking about really anything else from Seattle. So
now we know why McLovin is only here for an hour a day.
Well, no, because you know what? Because I was talking about Turner, and Turner did go to Toronto, and my mom was on Toronto.
I got you.
So the Chargers hire Ravens exec Horitz as GM.
Yep.
That's something that happened yesterday.
Last night, yeah.
You know, real quick, since we were talking about the Raiders a second ago, I think the Raiders have to really be careful who they bring into that organization, right? I mean, they really need to take some step back and really do their due diligence and be slow to hire and quick to fire. Because, you know, after the Josh McDaniels fiasco and whatever, and then the whole thing with John Gruden and all that craziness before then, they really got to be careful and make sure they're bringing in the right people if they want to turn that franchise around and get it really in the positive direction.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they got a lot of holes to fill. So, I mean, Pierce is going to have his work cut out for him. Like, obviously he's got to get his coaching staff put together. But, I mean, they have very real questions at, you know, quarterback. You know, they got questions really all over the roster. I mean, that's a team that needs a lot of things. So I don't foresee them coming out and being overly competitive. You know, they'll be okay. Right. They'll probably be just
right.
If they'll be a sub 500 team, they'll be close to 500 like that. That's the caliber of team that is.
Yeah.
Got you. Well, as I keep looking at the news and stuff like that, because we didn't get to do really any news stories from yesterday. Actually, it came out after our show that Omeniu, I'm saying it, Charles Omeniu. Maybe I'm saying his name wrong. I'm killing it. The defensive end tore his ACL versus the Ravens. What kind of loss is that going to be for them? Now, I know that they are very deep in defensive end for the Chiefs. That's a shame because obviously he's not going there, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other defensive ends to take his place on that roster. But he was actually having a really good season. I think he had 8 sacks, 2 turnovers and such like that. So, I mean, he was doing pretty well. And obviously, I think he was part of the strip sack of Jackson on that play. I think he actually got injured on that play, the strip sack. So, 7 sacks, 28 tackles, and 11 regular season games. So he was hurt earlier in the season, and now he's got an ACL. Think that will affect the Chiefs in any way?
I mean, it's not great, but I don't think ultimately it's going to make that big of a difference for him. I mean, they got a really good defense. They're deep at a lot of positions. Like, I think they'll be all right.
I mean, Mike Dana's. I was just looking at him to see I guess he's going to take over the spot. He's got 6.5 sacks and 32 solo tackles. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, I think anytime you lose your main guy, your starter, especially on the end level, that does tend to hurt you a little bit. But sometimes, in the case of Trayvon Diggs, when he went down, I wasn't sure what we were going to get out of Blam, and then Blam goes out and blows up. So this could be a situation for Dana where he comes out. This is his opportunity to shine, and one of the biggest stage of your sport. So, either you sink or swim, and we want to make your name, and this could be a name-making opportunity for him. So next man up, let's go.
Yeah, there will never be more cameras on what it is you do than there is.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. If you want to get that Quan, if you want to get that next big paycheck, this is where it starts.
Yep.
I love that he keeps quoting Jerry Maguire.
I know exactly right. Show me the money.
He keeps quoting Jerry Maguire over there. Show me the Quan. Quan's my word. Stop using my word. Here's another story that I have to mention here that we talked about. I think it was yesterday. Chiefs coach Andy Reid denied providing inaccurate injury information about Kadarius Toney on Monday, and says that he will remain with the team. Well, obviously, he's been on the injury report. That part is not made up by any means. When asked about the post on a Zoom call, he's been working through some things, and he'll be back out there. He also had the birth of his daughter. So,
yeah, and what's back out there mean? Means he's going to suit up?
Well, I hope he gets something on them gloves to hold on to the ball.
I mean, you don't think he's going to get much playing time. He hasn't really played in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, when he was playing during the regular season, he was kind of a liability most of the time. So you have to imagine that back out there just means he's back with the team, not necessarily actually getting some play time. So, and then from there, he had a 1-year deal anyway, right? So I would bet that he's probably not with the team next season.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Andy Reid, if he does suit up, let him suit up. What do you tell him? Hey, just sit on the bench, stay hydrated. Everybody on this team is good to go. We don't need you. I mean, that's what I'm telling him. Look, just stay out there, look nice and pretty. Just be pretty.
Maybe they just treat him like the replacements. They put the stickum all over his hands, and they just wait for him to get kicked out of the game. And maybe he gets a couple of catches before they boot him out.
Hey, well, he got a touchdown in the Super Bowl last year.
Yep.
So, who knows?
Maybe he just shows up, in the biggest game. That's it.
Actually, and Reid says he'll be back out there, and we'll see how he does. So, I don't think that's a Yeah, that's not a confident type of thing. So it's just like,
And if
all
I'm
right,
Andy
maybe.
Reid, I'm like, look, I got Rice, I got Scantling, I got all the people that I need right now. We're moding. Patrick's happy, everybody's happy. Kelsey's playing great. No, we're not gonna mess with the recipe that got us to the Super Bowl because you want to decide. No, we're good. Just sit there on the bench, drink a little water. We're good.
Well, the way he lost his mind on Instagram was priceless. Like it took me a few times listening to it to actually even figure out what he was saying.
He was that angry?
Yeah. It was funny. I listened to it the first time and I'm like, okay, so he's calling him a liar and that he's not hurt. So then, you listen back and you're like, okay, I'm starting to piece a little more together. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's just like, yeah, they were lying. I'm not hurt. I mean, if you're on the report, you're on the report, right?
So, and another story that has come out that's really more Philadelphia based. It says Jason Kelce would like to remain with the Eagles once he retires. And I scratched my head about that a little bit as I literally scratched my head. That was kind of not really a joke. But I wonder if he is if he's really going to retire. I don't believe that he is. I don't think he's going to retire this year. I firmly believe that him and Travis are going to go one more year.
I don't even know why Travis would want to retire. He's at the top of his game right now.
Travis is not.
Yeah.
Travis is not.
I mean,
he's had a good playoffs. If you saw him the 4 games before the playoffs, he was not very good.
You think he's dipping?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what happens. That's what happens when you're a 33-year-old tight end.
Yeah. But then we're always going to ask, who was better, Travis or Gronk? I still feel like that debate's always going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, they're a little different, I guess. I mean, Gronk was dominant. Didn't like to work though. But I mean, he was just a monster human. And, he could go make a play. Like if I were to have one of the two, I would probably rather have Kelce because he's a guy that puts that work in. You can count on him all day. Whereas Gronk, he had moments like when the game mattered, he'd show up. But, he'd have moments where he'd kind of disappear in some games. But I mean, the dude, he was an absolute beast. I think if he would have had the work ethic that, a Kelce does, it would have been, it's kind of like Shaq, right? Like he could have had a longer, better career had he done a little more work than he did, right? As far as keeping his body in shape. But it doesn't change the fact that he's one of the best ever.
I just, I think Gronkowski is one of those guys in that, dynasty that kind of got forgotten about to a certain extent of like, everybody was on the Tom and Bill and who made who. But I mean, look how much Gronk contributed to that, right? I mean, he goes to Tampa Bay. Does he get a ring without Gronk over in Tampa? I mean, and I'm not saying he would, but I'm just saying, I just feel like, he's a guy that gets lost about and how much he contributed towards that team. I know we're not talking about work ethics of Kelce, this, that, and the other, but you cannot deny that Gronk was a huge part of Tom's game and a part of that culture.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He had some pretty dominant other tight ends through the years as well, though, even before Gronk got there. So,
yeah, but they weren't. I mean, I think of what is it? It's not Gonzalez, is it? Was it Tony Gonzalez? Not Gonzalez.
Yeah, they had Anthony. Was it? He was the one that killed himself in prison.
Yes.
Yeah, he had him for a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing. Like Aaron Hernandez was an absolute
Aaron
beast.
Hernandez, thank you.
Like he was an absolute beast. Now he was dumb and did some things that, right after he got his huge payday, he threw it all away. But I mean, he was probably the most dominant tight end in the league at that time, right? So it's not like he hasn't played with one, for most of his career, really. So yeah,
that's a shame for him, because truth of the matter is that he was one of those guys who couldn't look at himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what his problem was. He couldn't appreciate who he was just by himself. He did not like the fact that who he was in general, and that's what caused all of his mental issues. Caused the problem in the first place, and it's a shame. I remember when that occurred. When all of that happened, he spoke to Bill, and Bill said, "I'm sorry, we can't stand behind you here," and they dropped him from the team like that. It was like, good luck.
I mean, you had to.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely carried that past lifestyle with him into the NFL. He never quite separated away from it. And like you said, he had mental issues, and then you had the wrong crowd of people around you.
That's the thing is he
had a lot of issues.
Yeah, no, he leaned into that, regardless of how successful or how much money or any of that. He couldn't let that part of his life go.
No, that wasn't the problem. That wasn't the problem. No, it went a little bit beyond that. It's unfortunate, and
I would agree
but
with
it's
you.
The thug lifestyle. The thug lifestyle, I think, ultimately is what had him kill his friends.
Yeah,
but ultimately it was he couldn't deal with the fact of who he was, and who he was.
It's just a cocktail in the mirror. Man. It's a cocktail. It was a cocktail of a lot of things, right? Unfortunately,
and all of them bad. Unfortunately.
I mean, let's be honest.
Actually, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. He just couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with it. He was gay. He was gay, and he couldn't deal with it. That's why he killed that guy. The guy wanted to come out and out him, and he killed him instead. And then ultimately, they were messing with him in jail about it, and it became too much. The mental capacity of it became too much, and he killed himself.
Well, yeah, I think that all goes along with he just didn't have a good support system around him either, helping him out.
Correct.
Somebody
that is correct.
Talk to. I mean, it's true. When you're going through things in life and you don't have a good support system, everything else around you can compound what you're already, like you said, what you're already dealing with. Where the thug lifestyle, things like that. That's what we're talking about, compounding, right? And
absolutely.
And he made some really bad choices, obviously.
That's correct. And ultimately, rather than getting the help that he may have needed at the time, saying, "Hey, I'm about to do something really ridiculous," because the NFL has got the number to call. If you're in a bad spot, you call this number, and the NFL comes and gets you. They solve the problems. You're wasted drunk. Don't drive. Call the number. Guess what? We got somebody to come get you. We got somebody to come get you and get your car home too. They take care of everything. They do not want you to do something wrong. And they are very protective. If you are in the NFL, in fact, I think it goes further beyond. If you were in the NFL within 3 to 5 years, you could still use that number, and they will come get you, whether you were in the NFL for a minute or 5 years, 25 years.
Yeah.
No,
you call that number, they come and get you.
Yep.
But that's what blows my mind. They have, if you play in the professional sports like that, the resources that are at your fingertips was what Pags is talking about. The resources that they give you at your fingertips, I still sometimes have a hard time understanding why they get themselves in the things that they get themselves into, right? I mean, you could use the Henry Ruggs incident and things like that.
They're 20. They're 20.
Right.
No. I actually have a different thought process about this in general too. And
sure,
you guys could take this with with the way you want to or not. They ride on different highways than we do. These guys are driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour most of the time. The problem is that when you are driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you can't go down to a lesser highway. You can't go on the highway where we're driving 65 because ultimately you're going to crash. There's going to be a problem. And that's where the problems occur. When they go onto the off ramps and they start to deal with, with civilian life, Because I look at the NFL is like the military to a certain extent. You are in a different world. When you come back to civilian life, the world moves too slow. Everything changes. And that's, like I said, when you're getting off that off-ramp, that's where the accidents occur, because you're driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Everybody else is now standing still. You're going to crash. And that's what that's how I feel. I don't feel like a lot of it.
Do you think the NFL should adopt an academy? So as soon as you come out of the draft, they send you to this boot camp like the Army.
They do. They do.
And they sit there for weeks.
It's a 5-day boot camp. That's what it is. It's a 5-day boot camp. Everybody who goes through the draft, every rookie's got to go through it. It's mandatory. Mandatory. Yeah. Every rookie's got to go through it. And they try to push. They can only do so much. Ultimately, you still have to be responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's why I noted the age, because even though I had made lots of good decisions, I was still 20 and made bad decisions, right? Because you have free reign of your time. That's why you see so many of these guys when they get into the off season. That's where a lot of times they have problems, because it's one of the only times, to your point about it being an institution, is it's the only time they have free reign of their time. Because during the season,
it is dangerous to have that much money at their disposal.
Yeah, they have a ton of money and a ton of free time. That's why so many of them will get in trouble. They come in out of shape. It's the only time they're not dictated as far as what they're doing 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I mean, look at, was it Ray Rice? Was that the guy who the elevator incident?
Yep.
First, he's still married to that girl. It was literally, it was one of those situations where that was the life that they shared in general, privately. Yep. You know what I mean? It was like, what you didn't see on that video was all the times that she was beating him and all the things that she was saying to him. You didn't hear any sound. You just watched the end result.
Sure.
And ultimately, and like I said, he hit her, and that you can't do that. You just cannot do that at all. But, but that was the lifestyle that they were accustomed to. So again, now they're in the real world where cameras are everywhere. I mean, literally.
That's the thing too, right? We're yanking kids up out of situations in their life where they don't come from anything. And then ultimately, within a blink of an eye, you give them everything and they just don't know how to handle that lifestyle. Because they're not educated to handle that lifestyle because they didn't come from it. Right?
Well, that's the purpose. That's the purpose of the NIL. That's why the NIL really got started.
About the parents raising these athletes too, because at some point the parents, if they're spending time with them, and they can't always do it because maybe they come from a one single person household where the mom's got 2 jobs and she can't spend the amount of time with her kid to give her the right tools in life to handle what's about to come his way.
So for every Latrell Sprewell, for every Meta World Peace, you have a Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? Kobe Bryant came from great family. He had a great family background. And ultimately, same thing with Tiger Woods. Great family background. Ultimately, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something.
Right.
Whether you're doing everything right as you possibly can, or you're doing things wrong, like a little bit wrong, so morally wrong. I mean, Kobe Bryant didn't do anything wrong. Cheated on his wife, and got chastised.
I think he's ever really and that's almost like a moral thing more than it is a criminal thing.
Same thing. Well, think about that with Tiger Woods. Think about the same thing with Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
He wound up getting a golf club to his head. She never went to jail for that.
Yeah.
All because he liked messing around with other ladies.
True.
You know what I mean?
There are a few athletes, right? Like, look at one thing that really amazes me is I look at a guy like LeBron, right? I mean, this guy came from, he came from a lower, side of life, income wise, things like that. But he had everything. He had everything. He got the Hummer. He got all this stuff, but he never really let it get him to the point where like a Henry Ruggs situation or an Aaron Hernandez situation or a Kobe Bryant situation or whatever else you want to throw out there, right? Hell, even Michael Jordan had the gambling issues, right? He never did any of that. The guy, I got to give, and that's one thing I'm going to give LeBron. I give LeBron a lot of crap, but the one thing I do love about LeBron is he never let all that money, all that fame, all that everything change him. He stayed solidarily who he was to the point where he's even founding schools for kids. I mean,
So
different.
The one thing that I will say, and I 100% agree and appreciate what it is that you're talking about there. But the one thing I will say, different from LeBron in comparison to anything else, is that he was anointed the king in 9th grade.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right.
So he was always being processed for this lifestyle.
Groomed, I guess. He was being.
Yeah,
groomed.
I mean that's kind of what it was. I mean, think about Mike Vick. Mike Vick was living his life. The moment that he got in trouble, the moment that he had to go to jail, the NFL says, "Okay, we are stepping in now. We are going to give you the mentors. We are going to give you all the resources and tools. We are going to make sure that you are able to come out of this and be an upstanding human being afterwards." Yeah. And he went through all of the process. He went through all of that. But he had now and still has all of his mentors guiding him.
Yeah.
You don't get all of that. Like college doesn't teach you that.
No.
But the NIL now, that's part of the reason why the NIL was involved here, because they didn't want to all of a sudden, like now you've got the money in college. So we're going to give you a little bit of money so you can feel what it's like, because, before you were worried about where you were going to get to go buy some beer or to, go get, some ramen noodles so you don't have to steal them anymore. You could just go buy them with the regular money that you have,
Right.
And, so it preps them now a little bit. Not everybody has had parents that were athletes and learned how to deal with the money.
Well, so some of that is also that they have painted this like good guy persona about them. It's something we talked about, I think it was last week, is if they came out and were Charlie Sheen the whole time, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Be like, oh yeah, he cheated on his wife. That makes total sense. Like it's because they are painted as these, role models, and they've come out as they're the good guy of their sport and all of this. That's where when they slip up in that way, it becomes this huge conversation. Because if they were a total dirtbag, you just be like, yeah, no, that tracks. And you'd move on with your day. So, I mean, it has a lot to do with how they're perceived.
That's why Charles Barkley had that commercial. It's the exact reason. I am not a role model.
Exactly.
I know that I like women, that I like to gamble, that I do things. There ain't no halo above my head here.
Yeah.
Don't have your kids look up to me like I am the end all be all here, because I know that I'm not.
Yeah. And when he did things, you didn't look at him that way. You're just like, okay, we understand that he's that dude, which is why when you look at, Tiger Woods, he spent his whole career saying, I'm the good guy, right? Like that was the whole persona that he designed. And then when he, gets caught nailing every chick ever, people freak out about it. But again, if it was Charlie Sheen doing blow off a stripper, you're just like, I mean,
winning.
It's Charlie Sheen. Like this is what he does. Like no big deal. I'm just going to go back to my coffee and call it a day. Like you don't think about it twice. So, I mean, if you're going to be that dude, you can't build the, I mean, that's why there's so much hate for guys like Russ in Seattle or A-Rod, because they're like, oh, I'm the good guy and all of this. And then they're like, just kidding. We're going to dump you for the most amount of money. It's like, that's fine if you set that precedent first, right? If you're just like, hey, I'm here for the money. And you're like, I'm going to go somewhere else because there's more money. Everybody'd be like, Yeah, no, that tracks. But if you're like, oh, I'm the good guy, I'm going to take a team discount, I want to be here forever, and then you force your way out, yeah, the fan base is like, oh, okay, so first off, you're not who you say you were, which is fine. You do you, right? Like, go make your money. It's not like there's anything wrong with that. But that's two different people. So you can't be like, oh, I'm this good guy and I'm going to take a team-friendly deal and then force your way out of a contract you're still in. If you were an unrestricted free agent, that'd be one thing, right? But if you're forcing your way out of a contract, that it's viewed different. And so, I mean, that's the thing is whatever persona you want to build, you better make sure you stick with it.
Well, and that's it. And the one thing that I will say is that the more money that you have, the easier it is to hide that persona. I mean, I knew
who you are. So like eventually it'll come out.
Correct.
Well,
I mean,
let's out, but you can hide it for a little while.
Sure.
Well, you think of the whole Tom Brady thing.
Because no one knows who you are.
Think of the whole Tom Brady situation. Tom Brady's marriage was over 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew about it, but I knew. Like they said, I used to do a different type of podcast. We used to do this dating show where we would combine sports and dating and stuff like that, and gossip and stuff like that. And I knew that his wife had a boyfriend long before it came out. Long before it came out. They were doing their thing on the side. It's same thing when we're talking about with Will Smith, even, before the slap happened, not because of anything else. It was because it was coming out what was going on with his relationship, and he was the brunt of the joke. So he fought that off. The more money you have, the easier it is to try to hide what you're doing, but it never really hides. That's the problem. It doesn't hide.
All it does is build it. Right? Like it would be better if it got out earlier.
Or delay it.
Well, no, the problem is it delays it. So it becomes a bigger story when it finally lands.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it'd be better if it just came out earlier and people would be like, oh, okay, whatever. And then you just, it blows away as opposed to continues to build into this huge thing and then it drops.
Right.
It's like a woman with a pimple. Only so much foundation you can put on there before you see it.
I mean, I guess that analogy works. Sure.
Yeah, see?
I don't know where that came from, but
I mean,
all right.
But I guess it's accurate.
Somewhere in the mix of that, it's like, whatever. But anyways, I kind of lost what we were talking about. We were talking about, we went all across the gamut here. Again, this is the type of stuff that you get. No other show will give you this. Coast to Coast is where you could get all your gossip on everybody that you want to hear about. We got it all right here. We get calls into the show telling us what's happening.
People watching thought it was coast to coast, like physical coast, and it's actually coast to coast. You're just traveling all over the place in the conversation.
Exactly.
Coast to coast with a stop in the Midwest. Let's go.
That's the station identification. It's where people start tuning out. Like,
so I wanted to see if there was any other news that came out. None that I see that's with any coaches. So Seattle still hasn't got a coach. And, hey, let's talk about this real quick. There was a player on the Brooklyn Nets who played yesterday who hasn't really played a lot since he's gotten there. Hasn't really played a lot in the last few years. Ben Simmons.
Huh.
God,
I was going to say, I didn't even realize he was still playing.
So he almost got a triple-double, actually.
Oh, he had a good night.
He had 10 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds.
Wow.
Okay. In 18 minutes.
Okay.
Wow. It's efficient.
Yeah, so he did play pretty well. Say what you want about Ben Simmons. I was never a fan. I thought that the silver spoon. He was the beneficiary of a silver spoon, for a long time in his life.
Mhm.
And ultimately, once he started to get whatever problems he was having here in Philadelphia come to light, and then he blamed it on mental health and things of that nature and such like that. He is, I feel, the epitome of how to throw away your stardom.
Yeah.
In a big way. I feel like that's part of what occurred with him. I wish him the best. I do hope that he's able to come out, start playing again, and maybe even get back to where he was as a player. The fact that he was almost got a triple-double after not playing for half a season shows that he still got it a little bit.
Sure.
I think Ben has it. It's just his head has always gotten in the way of it. I don't know if it ever left. It's just his head, like you said, that was like his worst thing. He just, that mental capacity, that mental state really has messed with him.
It's so hard to be able to say, okay, that was a mental issue. You have a mental block that's going on.
Right.
That's what's occurring. Or that you have, you just have a problem with your self-esteem.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Your self-esteem, you can't take the hits to your self-esteem. So you have to be padded from that.
Yeah.
This is part of the culture that's built around the world right now with kids, right? My feelings are more important than your feelings because they're mine and I don't want to feel yours. Your feelings don't matter because mine matter. That's really what this comes down to, right? I assume.
Right.
Everybody's feelings matter more than yours if I say so.
Yeah.
So can you say that he had a mental health problem? Maybe. You know what I mean? I know that he didn't know his, although I keep saying that he had the silver spoon, his family life is a little tumultuous.
Yeah.
He has a sister who is not 100% all there. A father who was a little, Lionel Simmons, I think was a good basketball player while he played, but again, was always more of a shielded him. Like he never got to see, like there wasn't social media, so he never got to see the hate. He never got to see the bad stuff and always pulled himself out of those situations. Like when he was with LSU and he didn't play in the tournament because he didn't want to look bad in the tournament. When he shoots and scores 48 points one game against the best team in the league, and then you go up in the playoffs and he's got to dish it off because he's afraid to miss a dunk.
He just might have had the wrong mental tights on. That's all. You had to get the right mental tights to fit.
Hey, you can't go if you don't have your tights.
And maybe there's something to be said for that. Maybe there is something to be said for that.
Man.
Another thing that happened yesterday, and I'm trying to see who won that game or not, so we'll check that, was a new coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. Happened. What was it? Yes, was it last night or the day before? Because I don't see that they played last night, so it had to be the day before.
Talking about Doc Rivers, correct?
Doc Rivers.
Yep. That happened about, I want to say it was almost 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah, and they smoked the Pelicans. No, he opened up. No, that showed yesterday that he opened it up. Opened up his opening was against the Pelicans, and they smoked him.
Right, but he signed like 3 days ago. I mean, his opening night might have been the other night, but he.
Right.
Yeah, well, good for Doc. I mean, look, you should be able to win when you got a cast like the Milwaukee Bucks, for crying out loud. I mean, they got to, you don't have Damian Dollar and Giannis and, company over there for nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's taking over a team that was 30 and
30. Oh, no. His coaching, it wasn't that day. It was on Monday.
Okay. Was it Monday?
It was.
I mean, even still,
yesterday.
he's taking over a team that was 30-13. I should hope you can still win. Because if you
You know
don't,
what I'm saying? I mean, yeah. I was telling Logan and them the other day. I was like, if he can't win with this type of team,
they lost to the Nuggets. They lost to the Nuggets.
Did they lose to the Nuggets?
So Jokic gets a triple-double and spoiled Doc Rivers' debut as Bucks coach.
Well, there you go.
So he's lost 2 games in a row. He lost the last game of the playoffs. Actually, 3 games in a row because he lost the last 2 games of the playoffs and this first game. So Doc Rivers is 0-3 in his last 3 games.
Nice.
Great start to that tenure, isn't it? Great start.
Wow.
Griffin's playing.
He's 0-1 for his tenure. So it's I find it a little interesting. I don't think that he is going to I don't think that the Bucks are going to gain anything from him being there. He may be a good person in general. I just don't think he's a very good coach.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, you let go of Budenholzer to bring in Griffin, only to bring in Doc Rivers, who doesn't have a great playoff record, honestly. I mean, you'd have been better off just staying with Budenholzer that you won a championship with. Now you got to pay 3 coaches for the next, 2 to 3 years. Good job. And Giannis says he has complete confidence in the Milwaukee Brass. Good job.
Well, Giannis said that he didn't want to stay if they didn't make some type of show that they were committed to winning. Now, he said that at the beginning of the year, and then they went out and they got Dame.
Yeah.
I don't think Dame Lillard puts him over the top. I don't think he does because they traded away every bit of defense.
Well, that's the issue with it is you got rid of all your defense. So is your offense more dynamic? Sure, of course. But you can't play defense at all. Defense kind of matters in the playoffs. Like you may dominate in the regular season because people don't want to play that hard and people are taking time off and it's just the NBA that we have today. But
are you suggesting load management, Bo?
Yeah, no, it's the worst. So but once you get into playoffs, all of a sudden defense starts to matter.
Yeah,
I guess so. And the other thing that I see on the news portion of this is that they're going to investigate whether Joel Embiid's really got an injury or not.
Joel Embiid, when does he not have an injury? I mean, seriously. I mean, do we even care about this guy? He always has injuries. No, I mean, again, we talked about this a while back. He has great games. There's no doubt about it. But, real, not real, but he always has injuries. Like this guy is always injury prone.
I mean, that's AD too. AD is the same thing.
Oh, trust me, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm right there with you. But how are we talking MVP? And this guy's missing like half the season.
What are you talking about? They keep talking about AD like he's supposed to be the face of the league, and he can't make it through.
Oh, I get that too. Yeah, I get that too, and I just laugh every time I see it. That's just the NBA
we have today.
Yeah, every time I see that, I just. Okay, it is what it is. Real quick question. I know we're getting low on time. I want to ask you guys this earlier. Going back real quick to Andy Reid. Now that he's got 2 Super Bowls, possibly he could get a third. Do you think that he will try to see if he can match New England, or do you think he's going to call it quits?
No, you're not calling it. You're not calling it quits when you can potentially, like, if let's assume they're going to win, right? Like, hypothetically, they win this Super Bowl. Even if you were thinking about quitting, you can't. You have to come back and see if you can be the only coach to three-peat ever.
I get that. But I have seen out there rumors and stuff like that, small little things where they were hinting at possibly, Andy Reid was going to retire if he won the Super Bowl. And that's why I was asking, do you think he will try to see if he can come close to Bill Belichick's 6 rings?
No, I don't think he does that. But you have to try and compete if you can.
But how long do you recommend, or how long, let's say he gets the Super Bowl, how much longer do you think he goes?
2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
About 2 years, and that it works. It works one of 2 ways. 1 year, he three-peats. You three-peat, you leave.
Yep.
2 years, you lose the three-peats, you come back, you win 1 more year, and you roll.
Yep.
3 and 4 years, Actually, 3 and 4 years and 4 and 6 years. That's Belichick-esque. That's Belichick-esque, right?
Yeah.
Plus,
absolutely. No, absolutely.
Plus, he goes to a Super Bowl with multiple teams. I mean, he didn't win, but he had already gone to a couple already. So,
his resume is stacked. I mean, he's going to be a first-time, ballot. I mean, that's a given. But I mean, even more than that, I mean, we're talking legacy. We're talking bigger than the Hall of Fame. I mean, we're talking like serious legacy numbers.
Yeah, and I think that he's been to more conference championships than anybody else. Correct, as a head coach, including Belichick.
Yes. Yeah,
right.
I mean, because he's been to 11.
Okay.
He's been to 4 with the Eagles.
Yep.
Actually, is it 4 or 5? It was 3 in a row, and then the third one is 4. It was 4 in a row. 2001, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 8. Yeah, because he went to 5 with the Eagles.
Okay, and then he's.
I'm maybe messing that up, and then he's been in 6 in a row.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's impressive. I mean, seriously, that's impressive to get back that many times.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, he definitely goes down as one of the greatest all time. There's no doubt.
And hey, listen, let's be for real. He's not quitting coaching to go spend time with his family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that he coaches. I think he coaches forever. I don't know that he retires. How old is he?
I think he would be.
Is he what, 68?
I think he's got to be 72, 73.
No, he's not as old as the other
guys.
How
old is Andy Reid?
I think he's late 60s.
65 years old. 65.
65.
Oh, he's only 65?
His birthday is March 19th, 1958.
So the real question is does he want to go to the booth? Like, has he had enough of the coaching aspect, right? Like that ultimately is going to be what determines him leaving, because it's not like they're going to want him to go. Like, all he's done is win. So it's not like the team's trying to force him out. So it's just going to be whether or not he's just tired of coaching.
Yeah.
And I always thought that Tara. Initially, I thought that Tara Reid was his daughter.
Yeah,
but it's not.
You know what's interesting though? I think
I used to have a thing
Andy,
for Tara Reid. Till Sharknado.
I think when you're Andy, he's having such a good time out there. Honestly, I think he's having the time of his life with guys like Kelsey and you know what I'm talking about, man. Give me the quarterback. Patrick Mahomes. Thank you, my Brian. I think he's having such a good time. My brain goes. I think he's having such a good time on this team. Like, he really, I think, is enjoying his time on this team enough where I think he doesn't care. I think he wants to be in this environment that he's created with the other guys.
Well, not only that, I think that you're seeing more of his personality now too.
For sure.
In these commercials.
Commercials.
Absolutely. No, it seems like he's enjoying it. If he is trying to, if he's really thinking about calling it a day, I think it'll be when his nucleus has to start getting ripped apart, right?
I
when
agree.
Kelsey retires and he starts losing other key pieces, I think that'll be, if he was gonna do it, that would be the time. It'll be do I want to move into the the second part of the Mahomes era where you're paying him a lot of money and now you're starting to try and backfill holes, as because that'll be a thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And I firmly believe, like I said, that this is all going to be a matter of timing, that Kelsey is going to retire the moment that Taylor Swift gives birth, because he's going to be the stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. I think he's going to be the stay-at-home dad.
I mean, that was a good way to button up the show, is close it out with some Taylor Swift baby talk.
Exactly.
Well, there has been some ingeniousness on this show today. You see how we wrapped up the first part of the show with the end of the show? It's just great. It's good stuff.
That's right. We started with tights. We end with Taylor Swift. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, everybody! Thanks for hanging with us today. A lot of messages, a lot of different things that were going on today. Tomorrow, we may not get Jay for the whole hour, but we will be back here for the whole 2 hours. But we will be back here again. Same bad time, same bad channel. Everybody, thank you for hanging with us. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
I want